Where have all the podcast stars gone? The latest from our daily newsletter at podnews.net. Are podcasts getting worse? Rephonic reports that average ratings were highest for podcasts in 2016, and those star ratings have slowly been decreasing ever since, according to data the company analysed from Apple Podcasts. Patreon has unveiled an update to the audio tab in the Patreon mobile app. It allows patrons to listen to all the creators they follow in one place. We'll link to a short video showing it off. The company says podcasting on Patreon has doubled in the last 3 years, with podcaster earnings increasing fourfold. Acast says the company is focusing its efforts on conversational targeting, meaning advertisers are targeting conversations, not individual users. VP of Advertising Product, Chris Wistow, says it means an end to targeting by show title and instead the opportunity to advertise alongside subjects covered within each episode. The Webby Awards saw a 40% increase in podcast submissions this year, we're told. The awards ceremony takes place next Monday in New York City, back in person after 2 years of virtual shows. We covered a bunch of Dolby Atmos news yesterday, and we linked today to more information from Dolby and Q-Code, who've been mastering in Dolby Atmos since 2019. Wondery Plus are making shows available in their app only because there aren't any standard podcast apps that play back the format yet. An article in the UK's Observer newspaper says that Shagged, Married Annoyed has more than 100 million listeners. Adam Bowie points out that's unlikely to be true. We'll link to that from our show notes and our newsletter today at podnews.net. In Africa, expect new data to be released tomorrow from the 2022 Africa Podcasting Report. The Australian Podcast Ranker was published for April. Original podcasts by both ARN's iHeart Podcast Network and SCA both lost 18% of downloads month on month. An incomplete ranker, it measures participating publishers only and not the country's number one podcast publisher, the ABC. Apple is discontinuing the iPod Touch. That's the last iPod available. Thankfully, the word podcast is not being discontinued. CBC Podcast has revealed its Q2, Q3 podcast slate with true crime stories and a new season from Someone Knows Something. Spotify is testing a new homepage layout that allows a toggle between music and podcasts. Gemini 13 has invested in podcast and book publisher Diversion to launch a new premium podcast network, Diversion Audio. Diversion Audio's podcasts will drive new audience communities and tell expert-driven stories that spring from Diversion's book titles. Scott Waxman spoke to Podland earlier this year. Also, another person who spoke at Podland earlier on this year, Steve Jones from the Crowd Network. And Crowd Network and Free Turn Entertainment have signed a partnership deal to explore existing IP development across both companies. And the BEA Festival of Arts has announced its 2022 Faculty and Student Festival of Media Arts winners. Kim Fox was the first ever winner of 2 Best of Festival awards in the same year. And in People News, Shreya Sharma is now working as a content writer for Frequency Media. She also curates a podcast newsletter from Inside, whatever one of those is. And in podcast news, Dead and Gone is heading to the small screen in a deal with Wheelhouse Entertainment. The television series will be a scripted adaptation of the chart-topping first season. The Life and Death podcast from Ashgate Hospice in the UK's North Midlands releases their 3rd season this week. The host, Stephen Rumford, has interviewed a number of different people about grief and loss, including Mary Frances O'Connor from the University of Arizona. Target Spot has worked with Warner Music France to launch a podcast series, Avec ma gueule de Renault, to promote the French singer's new album. You knew that was a French singer, didn't you? Of course you did. It's hosted with Ausha. Father Wants Us Dead is the first true crime investigative podcast from NJ.com and the Star Ledger, uncovering new details about the twisted 1971 John List murders. It's hosted by Rebecca Everett and Jessica Remo, who are investigative journalists with 25 years' experience. Who Cares Wins with Lily Cole returns this week from Mags Creative. This season will run until the end of the summer, and we'll talk to people like Chelsea Clinton and Joe Lycett. And the award-winning The Modern West returns for its 6th season today. Expect a deep dive into a wide range of topics, including the law of the American cowboy, the evolution of the ranching lifestyle, the potentials for regenerative ranching, and the race for environmentally sustainable solutions. And if you'd like to hear trailers of some of those, then you want to go to podnews.net/trailers. And that's the latest from our newsletter. To read all the stories and subscribe, we're at podnews.net.